Greetings and welcome to another episode in Universal Consciousness. Today we'll be talking about the 7 hermetic principle of gender. Now, this topic is very unknown or misunderstood for a lot of scholars in regards to the initiate. When it comes to gender, everything has its duality in gender. The masculine and the feminine, we're not talking about physical principles, we're talking about what manifests in all planes through the positive and negative aspect of energy, that being passive and the other being active, one being expansion and the other one being contraction. The 7 hermetic principle of gender embodies the truth that there is gender manifested in everything, that the masculine and feminine principles are ever present and active in all phases of phenomena. Each and every plane of life has its own aspect of gender. Once we understand or grasp an idea of this topic, we will be able to decode everything as it manifests. At this point, we'll think that everything calls your attention, in fact, to genders. The hermetic sense of this topic means that ordinarily, everything has its active action in the presence and everything has its passive action in the presence. Through gender, it's derived from the Latin root meaning to beget, to procreate, to generate, to create, to produce. This is what gender is, but we're not literally meaning in the sexual term of this particular word. Once you take a moment to consider what we're talking about, this will show you that the word has a much broader and more general meaning than the term sex. Now, referring to physical distinctions between male and female, living things, etc., sex is merely a manifestation of gender on certain planes of reality. In the great physical plane of the organic life, which is the impressive reproduction of humanity. Now, who have acquired this knowledge of the hermetic philosophy have sought out to identify this principle in everything as too often reprehensible through theories and teachings regarding the sexual aspect. The gender solely means that creation is reproducing and generating. That's where we get this word gender from, generating or generation of reproduction. This is the manifestation visible as we know it on every plane of phenomena. It is somewhat difficult to produce proofs of what is being talked about in scientifically terms of the spoken action of the word as we refer to the meaning of gender. However, once you start to reason beyond science and beyond the physical planes, this principle of universal application will be a self-proven fact that the forthcoming activity of source is first manifested through action above all contraction. This defines the abstract ability of the distinct manifestation of this principle, which is gender, among the corpusculous ions or electrons, which is constituted in the basis of all matter, being the same particular energy at a denser level of plane in existence. Now, which is more active and which is less active? This is at neutral states of planes of existence through the atom, which until later regarded through manifestation, it is a final action through the abstract level of phenomena. However, it is indivisible and invisible at all times. The latest word for this, that the atom is composed of multitude of corpusculous electrons or ions, and the various names that has been applied through different authorities revolving this terminology, is also known as vibration, as to a higher degree or a lower degree of intensity. This gives you a better understanding of the action of gender. Accompanying this state is made that the formation of an atom is really due to the clustering of negative corpuscles around a positive one. The positive corpuscles seeming to exert a certain influence upon the negative corpuscles, causing the later to assume certain combinations. That's what we understand of create or generate as to an atom. This is in a line with the most ancient hermetic teaching. This is ancestral discovery as we know it being applied in the present moment, which has always been identified as the masculine principle of gender with the positive and the feminine principle of gender with the negative pole of electricity per se. Now, a word at this point regarding the identification of this in the public mind, it has formed an entirely erroneous impression regarding the qualities, so-called negative pole of electricity or magnetized matter versus the term of positive electricity, which is very wrongly applied in the phenomenon by science. The word positive means something real and strong as compared to something negative, unreal, or weakness. Nothing is further from this real fact of electricity phenomenon. The so-called negative pole of a battery is really the pole in and by which the generation or production of new forms and energy are manifested. Meaning, for there to be light, there has to be an opposite of opposed. So what we understand for the void is true meaning of the void is the allowance of manifestation for the light. In order for the light to expand or travel per se in an active manner, it needs to have a foundation or a base, and this is what we understand for space. What we understand for negative is not negative, and what we understand for positive is not positive. It's just a terminology to understand a degree of application through movement of these poles. There's nothing negative about it. The best scientific authorities now use the word cathode in place of negative. The word cathode is coming from the Greek root meaning descent, the path of generation. From the cathode pole emerges the swarm of electrons or corpuscles. For the same emerge those who wonder about the rays, which have revolutionized scientific conceptions during the past decades. The terminology cathode pole is none other than the mother of all strange phenomena which have rendered useless old texts and which has caused many long accepted theories to be relegated through the scrap pile of scientific speculation. The cathode and negative pole is the mother principle of electrical phenomena and the finest forms of matter as yet known to science. So you see, we are justified in refusing to use the term as to negative is none other than the generation of the action of positive action. This consideration of the subject upon submitting this word, it is also understood for the feminine aspect, very old terminology being applied at this end of the topic. The facts of the case is that without taking this information from the hermetic teachings into consideration, we shall never understand what they mean by feminine or negative energy. This is why we need to understand the Kabbalion principle of gender, and being able to apply this, we'll be able to speak out truth through the negative action of activity. A feminine corpuscle becomes detached from the rather masculine corpuscles and starts on a new career. It is actively seeks a union with a masculine corpus, being urged therefore by natural impulse that creates new form of matter or energy. This detachment and uniting form the basis to the greater part of the activity of the chemical world. It is when the feminine corpuscles unites with the masculine corpuscles as a certain process that has begun. The feminine particle vibrates rapidly under the influence of the masculine energy and circles rapidly around the later understood matter. The result, it is the birth of a new atom, which is the new atom. It is really composed of a union of masculine and feminine electrons or corpuscles. But when the union is formed, the atom is separate. It means it becomes a third party, having a certain property as an ID of itself, but no longer manifesting through the property of free electricity. This can be a little complex to understand, but this is what we understand for generation of reproduction. The process of detachment, stated in the hermetic principles of the separation of the feminine electron, is called ionization. These electrons or corpuscles are the most active workers in nature's field. Arising from their unions or combination, it is the manifested phenomena of light, heat, electricity, magnetism, attraction, repulsion, chemical affinity, and the reverse and similar phenomena. And all of this rises from the operation of the principle of gender on the plane of energy. The part of the masculine principle seems to be that directing a certain inherited energy towards the feminine principle, it starts to be active in the creative process. But the feminine principle, it is the one that always doing the active creative work in all the planes. And yet each principle is incapable of operating energy without the assistance of the other. This is what we call a a combination of form into the principle of one combined organism. For this matter, everything in the organic world manifests as both genders. There is always the masculine present in the feminine form, and the feminine form vice versa. The Hermetic teachings include much in regards to this topic in the operation of the two principles of gender in the production of manifestation of various forms of energy. But we do not deem to experience this through the visual realms. We do not seem to experience this in the mindful realm versus inheriting this information at this moment. This will create awareness, and this will be able to balance your understanding and back up your proof of truth through this application for the reason of your understanding as you progress this far. Now, with this example that we are giving through the topic of gender in the matter realm of electrons and the energy field of generation, this will give you a subliminal message as to the right way of thinking. In general, all idea of underlying principles of natural organisms will be better yet understood. Separating this topic from the sex identification, we can bring together that the principle of gender, it is the found nature of the field of matter, the energy field through the energy force of electricity, also known as something per se, generally regarded as electrical theory of the universe, or we can also say through the doctrines naming it source as a growing and most rapidly general acceptance of the terminology for God. Once we mention source, we mention everything in a formal organism being manifested through the expansion of an energy field that is consciousness. Once you discover this phenomena, even electricity has a root from the source through manifestation, and it's clear and unmistakable evidence that there's presence of gender in all activities, as we just mentioned previously and explained the proof of both masculine and feminine aspects, justifying the action through the reaction, through the motion, and the void of totality. Now, this principle of gender, it is necessary to be taken very serious in regards to understanding the phenomena of attraction and repulsion. This is manifested through the atoms in the chemical sense of the word, through the affinity of also understood love and hate per se of the atomic particles. The attraction between these molecules of matter become a dance, become a generation, a regeneration, and is considered to be the manifestation of reproduction. Can you see the phenomena in all source? That is the corpuscles of the electron. And more than this, can you reason with this hermetic principle through the law of gravitation, that strange attraction by reason of which all particles and bodies of this matter in the universe tends toward each other? But another manifestation of gender is in the operation of direction through the attraction of the masculine and the feminine energies, vice versa. Let us understand this principle so we can pass on this consideration of the operation of gender in the mental plane by manifesting all these features that are awaiting in our mental reality of creation. As we continue digging into this understanding of the hermetic principles, through this principle of gender, one can see that the qualities of the masculine gender states that the positive aspect of being is masculine, while the feminine aspect of being is negative. And this is the act of becoming. This is not to say that the female gender or a person who displays more feminine qualities is negative, or vice versa. Personality in its mood, it is more to do with the understanding of the energy that flows and manifests through their activities. As you understand this, you will grab a bigger grasp of understanding through unlocking higher realms of consciousness with this master key that has been handed down to us through the philosophy of the Kabbalion, through the Hermetic principles, for our development in this reality to become human as we know it. This principle throughout life has been experienced through the good and the bad, through the ups and the downs, and people don't see the gender in all activities as manifested through the principles. However, once you understand this, you will be able to flow in your best state of consciousness. This is the importance of having this knowledge.